Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the seventh in CSW Group's series of webinars, My Choices. So this is a series of webinars, each looking at a different aspect of career development or employability, and they're being offered to young people in a wide range of educational settings, both those in mainstream schools and colleges, and also those who are home educated. So today we'll be hearing from my colleague Stuart Allen. Stuart is a career development consultant here at CSW Group, and he is going to be talking to you about the benefits of volunteering. While you're listening, if any of you have any comments, thoughts or questions, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A box because we'll be allowing time at the end to answer any questions if there are any. Without further ado, I will hand you over to Stuart.
Thank you. As Ollie said, this presentation is on volunteering and looking at how can you benefit from becoming a volunteer. So just to begin with, what is volunteering? Well, volunteering is about giving your time and skills without pay for the benefit of others, the local community, and also for yourself. And as you will see as we go through this webinar, you can volunteer in many different ways and in many different settings. So, what are the benefits of volunteering to the individual? Well, volunteering is proven to provide many benefits to both mental and physical health. And volunteering can help with the effects of stress, anger, and anxiety. The social aspect of helping and working with others can have a positive effect on your overall psychological well-being. And volunteering gives you an opportunity to meet new people. It gives you the opportunity to try new things and have fun. And volunteering is a great way to stand out from the crowd when looking for work. So how else may volunteering help me? Well, volunteering may help you with your career by, it gives you the opportunity to learn new things. So depending what kind of volunteering that you do, some of the things you may learn about how to do admin tasks. You may learn about how to give good customer service. You may learn about engineering or how businesses work. So there can be a whole range of things that you can learn. Volunteering can also help you to gain new skills. So some of the other webinars have talked about the kind of skills and abilities that employers want. And we will look a little bit more later on in this webinar at some of the specific skills that volunteering can help you develop. And volunteering can also help with confidence. So one of the big things that people often feel when they're looking for work or they're moving from school to college or school to an apprenticeship is a lack of confidence or belief. And by doing some volunteering, that can really help build that confidence that you can do a job and you've got those kind of skills that are needed for work. Volunteering also gives you the opportunity to gain experience in the real situation. So you can think about what kind of jobs you want, but actually doing jobs and doing work in a kind of real environment is invaluable. With some volunteering, you can also access training or gain certificates. So examples of that, some people want to work in mentoring with young people and they can gain a mentoring qualification. Some people want to get into sort of careers around healthcare, and there's opportunities sometimes to gain certificates in first aid. One of the key things you use when looking for work or looking for different jobs is your CV. And often when you're leaving school and you haven't got much work experience on that CV, it's thinking about ways that you can improve it. And one of the key ways in terms of work experience is doing a work placement voluntarily. And that can look really good on the CV. Other areas of your CV that volunteering can help improve is the skills section. So you can refer to the skills that you've picked up through volunteering. And at the end of your CV, usually you have a reference. And again, the business or the organisation where you've done your volunteering can provide you a reference to say what you've done in a voluntary setting. And volunteering can also help you in any future interview for a job or a course. So often when you go on to like higher college courses or university, there may be, for example, a career course in nursing or in teaching. They will look at what kind of volunteering you've done. So what kind of experience you've got in working in education or working in the healthcare setting. So it can be invaluable in that sense. With job interviews, there are often lots of questions which are called scenario questions. So they might ask, what would you do in this situation? Or give an example of where you've shown leadership, or give an example of where you've used your initiative. And referring back to what you've done on volunteering can be great examples that you can sort of pinpoint in that interview. And it can be invaluable in helping you decide about your future. So as a careers guidance advisor, we often talk to people about ways of trying to decide what you want to do. And that could be looking at your strengths and weaknesses, looking at your interests. It could be going onto websites and researching into careers. But one of the great ways for a lot of people is actually doing a job. So for example, if you want to work with children, do some voluntary work with children. It can really give you that insight. Or for example, if you want to work with animals, get a voluntary placement working with animals. And again, it can really help you decide, yes, this is really what I want to do as a career. Or it could go the other way and think, maybe I don't want to do this as a career. I want to look at other options. So what are the skills that can be demonstrated through volunteering? Whatever kind of volunteering you do, usually you're demonstrating your communication skills. So this can be sort of verbal skills, written skills, digital skills, and it can be things like your listening skills with people, your ability to converse effectively with people. And volunteering can be really good at sort of helping you demonstrate those skills. Organisational skills. So if you've got to get yourself up and get along to kind of a voluntary placement and you've got to organise your day and activities, it shows that you've got great organisational skills. Using your initiative. So as people develop in any kind of voluntary placement, you have to show your initiative. So that could be an example like you're working in a retail environment, in a charity shop, for example, and you have to go up to a customer and ask them if they need any help. You're showing your initiative. It could be that you're sort of working in a stables and you can see that something needs sort of tidying up or cleaning, and you're using an initiative to do it. And that is a really key skill that employers look for. If you've got on your CV or an application form that you've done voluntary work, it shows that you're reliable and you're punctual, that you turn up on time and you sort of give a regular commitment. Volunteering can also demonstrate teamwork. So usually in any kind of placement, you're working with others. It can be in a small team, or it could be in a sort of large team doing a project. And that again is a real key skill that employers look for. Employers look for people who are trustworthy, and if they can see on your CV that you've got a voluntary placement as part of it, it usually indicates that you're a trustworthy person. Some people want to show that they're a leader, so they want to lead others in future jobs or be a manager and things like that. And again, voluntary work can demonstrate that. And it could be that you're sort of being part of an activity scheme in the summer for young people, or a sporting activity, and you're leading that activity. And again, it could be really good for your career and also demonstrate leadership. So what types of volunteering are there out there that you can do? Well, there are many different types of voluntary work you could do, and these are just a few ideas. If you live in a city or a town or even a village, you will see there's charity shops. And normally the people who work in that charity shop are volunteers. So they're giving up their time for that charity to help out in the shop. And you can gain experience in the charity shop doing things like working behind the till. You can be doing things like stock taking, dealing with customers, and you can get a really good idea of how retail environments work. So it can be really good if you want to get into that kind of career in future, but also great for your communication skills and other kind of skills. Gardening. There are lots of opportunities around volunteering in the gardening environment. So you've got organisations like the National Trust, who often use volunteers to help maintain their gardens. You've got other kind of placements with community projects. And sometimes you can do sort of gardening to help out with care homes in their sort of community outdoor space. There are other kinds of environmental work. So there's lots of opportunities to do things like litter picking, dry stone walling, creating nature trails, fence repair, all those kind of things that would help the environment. Working with elderly people. So during the current kind of pandemic, there's been lots of great examples of people who've worked with the elderly, and that can be people who've gone and done their shopping for them. It could be people who've collected prescriptions from a chemist and taking it to the homes of elderly people. It could be someone who's befriending them on the end of a phone to be someone there for them when they need to talk. And there's usually other opportunities in care homes and other environments working with the elderly. Work with young people. So there's often lots of opportunities to volunteer as a mentor or to volunteer on sort of a holiday scheme or a youth club. And again, that can be really good to gain experience if that's a career you want to do in future. And work with animals. So you could be doing volunteering in a stables, in a zoo, in a cats and dogs home. Those are the kind of environments that people do voluntary work in. So just to reinforce that in a visual way, here are some common volunteering opportunities. So if you are ever part of a team, so say an under-16s football team or an under-14s team, often the person who coaches that team is a volunteer. So they're doing it to help the community because they enjoy it. And it could be that they're doing it because they want to gain those skills for a future career. Healthcare hospitals. There are a whole range of opportunities to do voluntary work at hospitals and in healthcare. And that can range from working on lots of individual departments. It could be like a general hospital guide, it can be a ward visitor, and even things like hospital radio volunteering are possible in hospitals. Again, as we've mentioned, working with animals, it's a key area where there's often lots of voluntary opportunities available, as I said, in zoos, stables, kennels, cats and dogs homes. If you ever go to any events, such as football matches or concerts, there's usually people there giving first aid. And they're often from organisations like St. John or the Red Cross. And they're usually volunteers. And as part of that voluntary experience, you can gain things like first aid certificates, which can be invaluable for future career paths. So say, for example, you want to be an ambulance care assistant or a paramedic in future. Gaining experience in a first aid certificate through St. John would be really, really valuable. You've got opportunities to work with children. So people can work in nurseries, in play schemes. And again, that could be really satisfying and really rewarding for your future kind of career path. And like we said, there's lots of opportunities in gardening and outdoor work, which can really help for a whole range of environmental careers and also benefit the community generally. So I'm now going to go into some of the common questions that often come up when people think about volunteering. So the first one is, what age can I become a volunteer? Well, the answer to that is any age. So people volunteering can be from the age of like early teens, and they can carry on volunteering, and there's people who volunteer right into retirement, into the 70s and 80s. So it's quite open. Some people do award schemes like the Duke of Edinburgh, or are part of groups like the Scouts, where you do volunteering as part of that experience. The next question is, do I have to be a certain age for some types of volunteering? And the answer to that is yes. So an example of that would be some people do volunteer driving, driving people maybe to hospital or driving people around. And that, obviously, you have to be a certain age to drive and may have had to be a driver for a few years. Another example would be hospitals. Often you've got to be 16 to do that kind of voluntary work. But there will be different kinds of restrictions, so there will always be a kind of volunteering that you can do regardless of your age. How many hours will I have to do each week? Well, generally, it's kind of open to you. So if you can give a couple of hours to a voluntary placement, that's brilliant. Some people give half a day a week, some people give 2 or 3 days a week. It's kind of open and depends on your kind of situation and what you can offer. Sometimes there is a slight commitment. So if you're given some training as part of a role and you're committed to doing some voluntary work regularly for 6 months, you may have to be give so many hours, but generally it will fit in with whatever you want to do. Next question is, can I volunteer and go to college or sixth form at the same time? And absolutely, yes, you can. So usually when you go to college or sixth form, you might be in college, say 3.5, 4 days a week, and you could fit any volunteering in on that other day that maybe you're not going to college. You can also fit volunteering in evenings and possibly at weekends. Obviously, the main thing is that you can fit in your study and fit your sort of volunteering around that. Will I get paid to volunteer? Well, the answer to that is no. Because it's voluntary, you're doing it for all the other benefits, not sort of the money side. Could I get help with travel expenses? So the answer to this is yes. And normally, if you're sort of giving up your time to do some voluntary, that kind of business and organisation will reimburse you for the bus fares, for your taxi fares, for your train fares, whatever kind of expenses are necessary in the role. And you may even get some sort of help with kind of food. If you're doing a voluntary placement all day, you may get your lunch provided, for example. What happens if I want to leave my voluntary work? Well, it's not like a paid job where you've usually got to give notice and tell the employer you're leaving a certain period in advance. With voluntary work, it's more that you kind of give a little bit of notice as a sort of general courtesy. So you might say, I've got to move on. I've got a full-time job and I can't do these hours anymore, but I will carry on working for a couple of weeks. So a little bit of courtesy will also help then with that organisation for the future. So the last slide is really now looking at where you can find out more about volunteering. So from our webinar, you know that volunteering can be really good for the future. So these are some of the ways you can find out more. So you may be able to contact directly any place where you want to do voluntary work. So that could be a hospital, a charity shop, sports club, or an animal shelter. For some of these, you may just go into the charity shop, for example, and ask them, I'd like to do some volunteering. How do I go about sort of find out more information? For others, you may sort of contact them on their website or give them a call. So for a hospital, if you look on their website, somewhere on that website, usually there's something about how you become a volunteer. Similar for some animal places. So for example, zoos often have a little bit where it says about how to volunteer. You might also be able to use a Do.org website. So this is a really good website where you can search for voluntary opportunities in any particular area. And you could search, for example, say you were looking at Exeter area, you could do a search for Exeter and look at all the voluntary opportunities there. Or you could be more specific and look for example, work with children in Exeter, and it will bring up any opportunities. In a lot of towns and cities, there's a volunteer bureau where you can go along and sort of either speak on the phone to them or go along in person, and they will kind of talk about the opportunities that are available and sort of match you to them. And finally, the Prince's Trust is an organisation that offers information about volunteering for young people. So if you contact them, they can give a lot of information about the opportunities that are available, and also on their website, there's a lot of information. Okay, that's kind of the end of the presentation. Is there any questions?
Thank you very much, Stuart. So I'm just having a quick look at the Q&A box. I can't see any questions there at the moment, but we'll leave that open just in case anybody wants to type in anything for the last couple of minutes. So have you got some information? Oh, hello, we have got one now. Let me just have a quick look. Okay, this is a question from Cassandra. It says, how can you work at a hospital in the current climate? So I think Cassandra's asking about in the context of COVID-19 there.
Yeah, I think with all of this presentation, there's kind of some limitations at the moment because of COVID-19. So it would really be a case of contacting a particular hospital to see if there is any way they can facilitate voluntary work at the moment. So it would vary possibly from area to area and according to the policies of that hospital, I would imagine at the moment.
Yeah, and I think also it's one of those ones. What I would suggest it's keeping an eye on the current situation. So there may be some opportunities where just while the COVID infection rate is high, might be worth avoiding until a later date when hopefully it has receded, or if perhaps we are in a better situation with the vaccine. But it's worthwhile knowing about these things because particularly if any of those listening are thinking about health and social care related careers, traditionally that sort of work experience has been important. So it is a challenging situation there and we are in uncharted territory, but do keep it in mind, and yes, do keep an eye on the COVID situation. It's a fair enough question to ask there. Do we have any other questions? No, I don't see any others there. So have you got any information about our next webinar there, Stuart?
Yeah, there we are. The next one is at 3 o'clock today, which is an introduction to apprenticeships. So really valuable if anybody wants to look at apprenticeships and how you go about finding them.
Thank you very much, Stuart. So yes, if anybody listening would like to attend that, please register for that session just as you did for this one. And our final session will also be tomorrow at 2 p.m, which will be an employer Q&A session. So thank you very much for that, Stuart. Lots and lots of useful information there. You will have the opportunity to offer feedback on this session, so we'd be very grateful if you could just let us know how you experienced our session today. But other than that, thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see as many of you as possible next time.